John Wesley, the Journeyman guitarist here. Welcome back to the show. Today I'm going to try and attempt to answer that age-old question, what is the smallest or minimal pedal board I need to do a gig? Well, there's a lot of options out there. I've done a lot of different kinds of gigs. I've got a few pedal boards. Is it perhaps this one with 4 pedals, a tuner, a drive, a boost, and a nice little analog delay? Or is it this one with a switching system on it? It's got the Gig Rig G3 Atom, and in that I've got a Big Sky reverb, the Diamond Memory Lane, the beautiful PRS Wind Through the Trees flanger, a Klon. I've got an Analog Man King of Tone to give the Klon that lift for solos, and then a 1975 Budbox or 74, I don't know, Phase 90. Is that the ultimate pedal board, or is it the one I'm using on tour with Vertical Horizon right now, which is based off the Quad Cortex? I've got the Strymon Timeline in the effects loop, along with that beautiful little new Strymon reverb, the Cloudburst. I've got the pedal that the expression pedal set up to the Timeline, and all in the effects loop of the Quad Cortex, and it's only that big. Is that the ultimate setup? Or is it this? This is something I would have used with Big... Actually, I did. I used this with Big Elf. I used this with Simon Collins. I've used this all over things. And I also use it now to record because it's got a lot of things on it, again, based around a Gig Rig switching system. Slightly older version. This is the G2. But it has a lot more things in it. This has 9 different effects in it. Gain boxes and everything. And I would actually nowadays combine this and this if I were doing a gig like Porcupine Tree. If I were back out with that, I used to run two pedal boards with Porcupine Tree, and I ran 2 pedal boards when I did the Steve Wilson solo thing. So I have all of this, and the question is, what is the best setup? What is the minimal rig? What do you do? What do you take? It's kind of a big question, and I get it a lot. So I have an answer. A while back, I did a memorial gig for a dear friend of ours, Russell Farrow, and it was a big jam session, and all of his friends showed up. And Replay Music Exchange in Tampa supplied the back line. And it was one of those things where you just showed up with a guitar, and you got up there, and you grabbed a few guys, and you jammed some tunes. And so I got up with my buddy Mark Prater and Dave Weiner and this guitar, and there was a series of amps, but I noticed one, a Dr. Z, I think it was called a Z-Rack. And all I had with me was my guitar, and I just plugged into the Z-Rack, tweaked a couple of knobs, hit it. I got a good crunchy sound out of it. I backed off the volume a little bit, and that was my rhythm sound. And when I went to do a solo, I just kicked the volume back up, and it was loud, and it was old school, and I had no pedals. And it hit me. I'm like, I just did one of the best sounding gigs I've done in a very long time, and I had no pedals. I was like, what happened here? I had a headstock tuner, like a little cork thing or whatever they are before the gig, just to make sure I was in tune. And then I went up and just rocked it for 4 or 5 songs. And I wanted to let you know, I do a bunch of different kind of gigs, so I put some thought into this, and I thought I'd bring it all out here. Now, at some point, I do want to go over each individual setup more in detail, but I think that's another video, because I want to answer that question, what is the minimal setup? I mean, what is going to make you sound good as a player? What are you going to get away with? And there's a lot of these questions on the internet, and there's a lot of people, a lot of guys with a lot of different opinions. I wanted to share mine with you, and I wanted to share it from experience. So I've done a couple gigs lately where I don't need a lot of color. What I need is a really good sound. And the first thing that I'm going to say that the most minimal pedal board you can have, the least you want to show up with, is this. A tuner. This is a Boss tuner, not necessarily a Boss. I've got several TC Electronic tuners. But if you want to show up with the minimal thing that I think you need to play a whole night and do a great show, I think you need a tuner. But the second thing is, I think you need a versatile amp. to show up with just a guitar and a tuner, you better have a great amp. And the one I'm going to be demoing today is the Bad Cat Jet Black. I think you can see it. But the great thing about the Bad Cat Jet Black is, much like the Z-Rec, you can just plug into it. It's a 2-channel amp, so it's even a little more... I didn't have a second channel on the Z-Rec that day going. And it just sounds great. And let me just give you a little example of that. So this is just the guitar straight into the amp. Now add a little more gain to that, and you wouldn't even need to change the channels, really, because I mean the solo sound is... That's a really good amp. Now, the cool thing is it's got 2 channels, so again, no pedal board, no nothing, just a tuner to make sure I'm going to be in tune. I put that little pedal switch over and... And then if you notice, I kind of had the Z-Rec set up like this channel. It's clean. A little less clean. A little less clean. So really, if you've got the right amp, all you need is this. And people that hire you typically like you to be in tune, so I kind of recommend one of these. Now, I sing a lot on my gigs and my hands are tied up. So the second thing I like to take is I always like to take a volume pedal, because this volume pedal will act as the volume knob on my guitar. So that way, as I'm singing along, I've been doing this for so many years, if I want to clean up a tone, I can just lean into that volume pedal and back it off a bit and the tone just cleans up. Now, let's say you've got to do a gig and you don't have an amp that changes channels like the Jet Black. But we're going to use the Jet Black anyway because I've got it plugged in and I really like it. So this is just straight into the Jet Black. And again, I kind of always shoot for an edge of breakup tone. A lot of definitions of that, as I have been reminded lately. And to do another type of gig, I might take out, and this is the pedal board I'm going to demo today, just a really small pedal board. Now, this is just one of those little pedal boards I picked up off of Amazon, and I threw some effects on here that I kind of like. I've got the Polytune tuner, and I'm putting it into the horse meat, which is they call it a transparent overdrive, and it is. It doesn't color your tone at all. It just hits you with some really nice gain, and I keep the gain kind of dialed back a little bit as kind of a first stage. And then this other pedal here, this little yellow thing, is a color drive, and it is handmade by a guy in his garage from a company called Vintage FX, and it's not too expensive, and it is a very faithful recreation of the early 70s color drive, and I like it as a clean boost. As a matter of fact, all through my years in Porcupine Tree using Marshalls, I used a color drive on the clean channel of the amp to take the Marshall Plexi kind of clean channel that I had, because in Porcupine Tree you had to have this raging killer crunch sound, and then you had to go instantly super clean, and I would add a lot of sparkle to that sound by using the color drive. And the other way I like to use the color drive is as a lift. I do the same thing over here with the Klon and the Analog Man King of Tone. I use the clean side of the King of Tone. So, you know, you got a gain box for the guts, you got a little clean boost for the lift, and I like a little analog delay or a digital delay. I've got several. I've got the Timeline, my favorite delay of all time in history. Well, actually, I love the Timeline. It's a different thing. It's a digital delay. My favorite delay of all time is the Diamond Memory Lane. Look that up. Google it. whatever. I think they're still making them. It is just a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful Bucket Brigade analog delay that I love. And then one of my other favorites, man, that you can, again, just get off Sweetwater, Amazon, anywhere, is the MXR Carbon Copy analog delay. I love the little MXR Carbon Copy. It's not expensive, and it's just so sweet sounding. So I'm just going to demo that for you real quick on this little tiny pedal board. So I could do almost any gig with this pedal board. Like I'm doing the Vertical Horizon thing right now, and if I had a really great sounding amp, I could go out and do the vertical gig and get most of the sounds. Now, granted, while I'm out on that gig, I add in the timeline and I add in the cloudburst, and I do some really beautiful kind of clean lines and spacey sounding things. But I could do a lot of the working gigs that I would do, rock stuff or funk stuff. I'm not really a funk player, but mostly a rock guy, with just this little setup. You know, a drive box, a boost for solos, and a really nice delay. Listen to how nice this delay sounds. Maybe. Here we go. And you can set it up for slapback if you needed to, anything, whatever the gig requires. But you could do, you know, if you're playing. So that's just a delay straight into the amp, and it's just so pretty, and that would really sit really nice in a mix. And that's the other thing, is to play really nice parts that sit well in a mix. And the Carbon Copy is going to do that. So the other way I like to use this setup was, so I've got, you know, I've got the clean sound. Let's say I'm you know. Let's say I need to arpeggiate a part. Sounds great, but let's say another section of the song comes up and I've got to give it some guts. Well, you just kick in the horse meat. Actually back off, you know, if I had that in, I could back off and then it's, hey, what, solo time. Now let's say you needed to go a little more floaty or a little more washy, so you could bring in your Carbon Copy. Now that is all in the clean channel of the Jet Black. So if you were out doing a gig and you were using a Fender Deluxe or a little AC-15 or any of those kind of amps, you could take this little 4-pedal board and do almost any gig with it, and have it sound fantastic. And this little setup here is, you know, probably under $500 total to get the whole thing, you know. Again, I always like to bring in a volume pedal. So I guess my take is, if you've got a really good amp, and depending on the gig, the minimum pedal board you need is really a tuner, just to make sure you're in tune, because let's face it, no band leader likes a guitar player that can't stay in tune all night. So that's kind of crucial. But the next step up, I think, would definitely be a tuner, a gain box, a clean boost, and a beautiful little delay. My thoughts. And then, you know, if you want to have some fun, get into this mess. Take some time with it, though. It's a crazy world out there. It's a crazy world when you get into this stuff. And we'll get a little further into this. I want to show you guys how I use some of this stuff later on. But anyway, I hope you like that. I hope it helps you. I hope it gives you some info. John Wesley, the Journeyman Guitarist. Like, follow, subscribe, and more than anything, in the comments, I try and read all the comments and do some answering, so please tell me what you think. Tell me your thoughts on the minimum pedal board. You know, I'm sure you have some different ideas on what would inhabit that board. You know, this is what I happen to have, and this is what I happen to use. So let me know what you use, and let me know what your thoughts are on the minimum pedal board. The Journeyman Guitarist, signing out.